My name is Leslie Booker, and gosh, my work is at the intersection of Dharma, embodied wisdom, and liberation practices. And I started doing this work, it's really my heart work around 2006, bringing the practices of yoga and mindfulness to incarcerated youth and vulnerable populations. So, working with folks who are experiencing homelessness, living with HIV and AIDS, living with addiction. And my primary heart work was always working with young people who were locked up and away from their families. It was a total fluke. I had been teaching yoga and mindfulness in jails for a few years and really feeling my heart be just so deeply connected to that work and wanted to do it in a much bigger way. And at that time, I was able to teach a class or two a week. And I had just sat my first retreat, and then I went to Uganda to sit a private retreat with a monk, with Bhante Buddha. And when I left Uganda, I asked him for advice because I had quit my job. I had taken every penny that I had to go there and be on this retreat with him. And when I left, he said to me, "Your work has to be your practice, and your practice has to be your work. There can be no separation." And so I came back and I was trying to figure out how to have a life that was fully intertwined and connected, where I wasn't doing my practice and my life, that I was doing both together. And a friend of mine had forwarded me an email from Lionheart looking for a facilitator to do a project on Rikers Island. And I remember I got it and I said, I'm completely not, I can't do that sort of work. It's like, oh, I'm not qualified for that. And my friend said, I think this is your job. And I said, I don't know. So I put it away and I put it away. And finally I circled back and I responded to them. I think I was the 100th applicant for this job. And it was like just boom, boom, boom. And like within 3 days, they hired me, and it blew me away. Um, and it felt like it was the right time, the right fit, the right people. Like just all the circumstances just fell into place. And I was so happy to find a home with Lionheart. So I think the job description was research assistant. And I was like, I don't do that. But I teach yoga and I teach mindfulness. I've been working with vulnerable populations for a long time. I really know how to do that. And so it was this really beautiful fit of me coming in and saying, these are my skills. And then the people that ended up being my co-facilitators were folks, Jess and Isaiah, who are both getting their PhDs in psychology. And so it's this really beautiful combination of all of our skills and our heart work coming together. So I kind of introduced and educated them around mindfulness, and then they brought in their psychology and educated and supported me in learning about CBT. And so it was just the perfect, like it just came together so beautifully. And the ability to be able to do the work, so to take the work I had been doing and go onto Rikers Island and to do this work full time was really such a blessing and unheard of at that time. And so it really gave me the opportunity to take this heart work and to really do it in a very full way. The thing about folks who have been incarcerated, about that whole system, is that they don't want you to survive. They don't want you to thrive. They do everything they can to take away your humanity and your nobility and your dignity. And this project, Power Source, was allowing folks to reclaim all of that, to have autonomy, to have choice, to have decision making skills, to tell people, like, you're not done, we're not done with you. We still think that there's something in there. We still see your humanity, we still see that light. And this project really allowed us to go in and work with young people. We're working with young men that were 16 to 18 years old who were already serving, some of them, you know, multiple year sentences. And so many of these young people have been in and out of jail since they were teenagers. They had been told that that was just who they were going to be, that there was no other opportunity for them to be anything other than an incarcerated person, someone who was constantly in and out of jail. And this project said, that's not true. It really was like, this isn't true. We see you. We see you. We want to celebrate your humanity. We want to, yeah, we want to, yeah, we want to love you up. I felt like so many of the kids that we worked with didn't have access in their lives to be vulnerable, to be raw, to talk about the fact that there was fear in their experience, how lonely it was to be away from their friends and family and community as they were being locked away. And, me and Jess and Isaiah created such a deep connection with these young people. They told us things that they never told anyone else. And we really felt like their big brother and sisters, or like their aunties or uncle. Like we felt like um, so connected to them, and so it was so important for us to keep showing up every day, even when we were exhausted. um, we were like, but we got to get to our kids. It was so important. I was even on the way once. We were on the Q100 going to Rikers Island. It's like this horrible bus that takes you onto the island, and we got into a bus accident. So the bus hit a cab, and it was one of those double long buses in New York. And I flew from the back of the bus and woke up in the front of the bus. So I had flown 2 bus lengths and landed on my shoulder. And, I was unconscious for a little bit, definitely had injured my shoulder. And everyone's like, you gotta go to the hospital. And I was like, no, I gotta get to my kids. And I might have been a little bit delirious. I might have been like a little concussed at the time. But I remember just being like, of course I'm not going to the hospital. Like, we're on our way to go see our kids. We're already late. We have to get to them. So, for those 2 solid years, we never missed a day. It was so important for us to make sure that we showed up. Yeah, and so when the project was over, I immediately went to Spirit Rock where I began my first of, which turned to be 10 years of training at Spirit Rock to be a Dharma teacher. And so my foundational work of, being an activist and working with vulnerable populations and really allowed me to share the teachings of the Dharma, you know, and it really helped me to understand the deep suffering of the world and to understand these teachings of liberation. Because it's not just about sitting on your cushion and navel gazing and being quiet and having your own personal liberation. It's really about collective liberation. So if I'm not free, you can't be free. And if you're not free, I'm not going to be free. And so what we did together in Power Source was really, we came together as a community, as a Sangha, to make sure that every single one of us were lifted up. And the young boys that we worked with, the young men that we worked with, they were so committed to each other. So an environment that really pitted them against each other, that made them believe that they were each other's enemy, this project allowed them to understand that they belonged to each other and that their liberation was inherently connected to each other. And so, the work that I do now as a Dharma teacher, as a meditation teacher, I bring that in. I remind people that this is not an isolated practice that we're doing, right? We have to do this in collective, um, we have to do this in relationship. And, when we were doing this work, we realized, we noticed that we would do this amazing work with the kids, and then the corrections officer would be off in the background making fun of them or trying to interrupt them. And so we started to engage with them. And I think that there's a little bit of jealousy, of not being seen, of not being witnessed. And, the teachers that are going in there, the corrections officers that are working there, they are also locked up behind doors every day. They are also feeling the impact of incarceration, even though they're able to go home each day. That is where they're spending most of their lives. And so I realized very early on in doing that work that it's not it's not just about working with the kids, with the students. We have to work with everyone, with the staff, with the administration, with everyone who is involved, because it doesn't work if only one piece of the puzzle is in place. It has to be, again, like a collective practice and a collective understanding of what we're doing together. And so to have the support of staff, of everyone, the educators, is what allows this work to really, really, really be in its fullest beauty and its fullest strength, is when everyone can come together and share a similar language, so that when there's conflict, we can find shared language to find resolution. So it's so incredibly important that everyone's doing this work together, not just one aspect. Everyone's got to do this work together. I think everyone who is in direct service with other humans should be a part of this work, which means most of the world. But especially if you are in service to other folks, if you are working with vulnerable populations, having the capacity to have a little bit more tenderness, a little bit more compassion, having the skills that really support you to peel back the layers, to take off the mask and see the human behind, the bad behavior. It is incredibly powerful, and I was doing this work before I came to Power Source, working with vulnerable populations, and having this additional language, I mean, was transformational in how I was able to do the other work that I was doing in the world. It gives you a place to land, language to speak, a different perspective to look at things. And so it was just such an incredible platform to deepen my ability to be in better communication, to be in better relationship with everyone that I've worked with in the past, what, between 2009 and we're now in 2022. So however many years that's been. It's really it's really influenced everything I've done since then. Yeah, I'll say, when I was younger, I was an activist and one of those people who had my mouth wide open and my ears and my eyes completely shut off to anyone who didn't agree with me. And I got really burnt out and left that world and started to do my work with vulnerable populations and finding Power Source and doing that work. It really allowed me to reopen that part of my past experience, a part of my heart that really wanted to get out on the streets and fight for what I truly believe in. And so deepening my mindfulness practice and having the skills from Power Source allowed me to re-engage in the world of activism in a way that didn't burn me out, in a way that didn't harm other people, in a way that really allowed us to be, um, to understand that we weren't fighting against each other, that we were really fighting for, um, our freedoms, and to understand that it might look different for other people based on our social locations. And I could still have a conversation. I can still be in relationship with those who I consider to be my enemies before, because I have this new way of communicating and integrating my practice, um, and really showing up in my heart work in the biggest way that I could.